Hey guys, welcome. I'm not a published indie developer yet. I'm not an expert in this field, but I can tell you with 100% confidence that I will finish the game that I'm working on right now. There is not a doubt in my mind. And I'm confident enough in that statement that I went ahead and decided to create this video about how to actually go about finishing your games, even though it's something that I've never done. And it's not because I'm some sort of who's full of himself. Quite the opposite, actually. It's because of my huge number of failures that I've had in the past. I have failed so many times at so many different things that I've noticed patterns that emerge out of the ashes of all of these failed projects. So I just want to pass on what I've learned, and hopefully this will help you on your game dev journey. Now, I know I'm not alone in not finishing my games. I'm willing to bet that some of you have a few unfinished projects of your own, but that doesn't mean that you can't do it or that you're not going to do it. I've quit many of the projects I started over the past 6 years, and I've just witnessed countless YouTubers and other content creators quit their projects as well. And everybody says the same thing. I'm definitely going to come back to this project later on, but most of them don't. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anyone just hit the pause button on their development cycle and then actually come back to it months and months later and finish the project. So what is it about game development? Why is it so hard to finish a game? Let's get into it. On the surface, this sounds like an easy problem with an easy solution. And here's my example of that. If you want to actually finish your game, then the only way to actually accomplish that is to not quit your game. Just don't quit your game, and you will actually finish your game. That's all I got. Thanks for watching. Seriously though, if it were that easy, then every game developer out there would be finishing every single project that they started, and you probably wouldn't be here watching this video right now. I want to reassure you that if you have the drive to have taken the time to learn game development, then you definitely have the drive to actually finish your game. I promise you that. You are not lazy. Motivation is not your problem. Something else is going on. So what is it? What makes quitting your games so easy and finishing them so hard? When I was just taking baby steps in game development and just kind of following my first couple of tutorials, I jumped into the game dev world head first. All of my social media accounts were flooded with devlogs and other indie devs and their journeys. And somehow, through watching all of that content, I started to develop an idea of what I thought it would be like to be a game developer. Let's use Thin Matrix as an example. If you haven't seen his devlog channel and you want to check it out, it'll be in the description below. He is an amazing developer, and his channel was my very first introduction to devlogs. His videos are so chill with really good vibey music. He gets things done from like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day, 6 days a week. And when he's not doing game dev in his office at home, he's cooking healthy meals or taking his dog for a walk or doing gardening on his balcony. I was so jealous of his life, and that's putting it mildly. I wanted his life so bad. I wanted his daily routine so badly. My intro to game dev was not what I saw in his videos. He had peace and quiet and the whole day to program. I had a wife, 2 kids, a dog, and 2 cats. Constant commotion, a full-time job, and maybe 1 free hour at the end of each exhausting day in order to get a little bit of coding time in. My point is, I developed an idea of what it was going to be like to be a game developer from watching these other videos. And whether I did it part-time or full-time, it didn't matter. My expectations clashed really hard with reality, and it just made it feel like something was wrong. I didn't know what, but something just felt off, like I wasn't doing something right. And this affected my motivation and my willingness to put work into the games that I was working on at the time. What you're going to find is that finishing your actual game, it's not going to be this huge burst of massive action and your game is just done. The people that actually finish their games, they're not necessarily the most talented or the most skilled. They're just the people that can tolerate all of the really boring stuff, and they keep showing up to put in the work every single day. There's plenty of things in game development that are not glamorous, and you have to be willing to do some stuff that you don't like or that you find boring or tedious or whatever in order to actually finish your game. I've had bursts of huge productivity, and I've also had bursts where I've had very little motivation and I hardly put any work into my game at all for weeks and even months. It's actually gone back and forth between the two many times. And what I can tell you from experience is that when you are riding that wave of momentum, it's like magic. You're just cranking stuff out and getting things done. It is pure happiness. There is no other feeling like it in the world. And yet when you're in a lull and you haven't touched your project for weeks, for some reason it's so easy to just put it off again and not touch it for another day. That's the funny thing about momentum. No matter which side of the coin you land on, whether it's huge productivity or huge lack of progress, either way, that momentum carries. If you have a streak going where you haven't missed a workday for weeks and weeks, you will find a way to continue working each day so that you continue that streak. Even if you have a really tight schedule and not a lot of free time, you're going to make it happen because you don't want that streak to end. But if you haven't worked on it in weeks, even if you do have the time to work that day, it's really easy to miss another day because you've already missed weeks. What's just one more day, right? Something to try here might be to give yourself visual reminders of the streak that you're on. You can do this easily by just like putting an X on the calendar on days that you've actually worked, and you can quickly see them all adding up. Once you have a string of X's on the calendar, you might even notice that it becomes a habit to actually sit down and do a little bit of work each day, and that you won't want to miss a day because you're not going to want to miss that streak that you're on. You want to keep this healthy, so you definitely want to be taking days off here and there. I always plan to work on my game Monday through Friday, and I always plan to give myself Saturday and Sunday off. And if I slip and I do miss a day, it's okay. We all have bad days. My rule of thumb is I don't let it happen 2 days in a row. Forget about the mistake you just made and start fresh the next day. I'm not going to talk about bad habits, but it might be possible that you're trying to create the wrong kind of habit. For example, I used to try to make a habit out of working on my game for at least 2 hours a day. I had a full-time job and lots of responsibilities at home, but I was pretty confident that I could swing 2 hours a day. But this never lasted for very long. And I think one of the main reasons is because I was trying to create the wrong habit. And if you've read Atomic Habits, then you know what I'm talking about. A habit should be something that's really small and really easy to accomplish. Instead of me trying to create a habit of me working on my game for 2 hours every single night, what would have worked better is if I had tried to make a habit where 8 p.m. every single day I sit down, open up my laptop, boot up my engine, and write one line of code. Just one. Now that is something I can definitely do every single day. Now obviously if you want to get it done, you want to write more than one line of code each day. But the habit you want to set shouldn't be 2 hours long. The habit should take you just a couple of minutes. If you're sitting on the couch watching TV, then thinking about stopping it and getting up and going to your computer and sitting down and doing work, it's going to sound like the worst thing ever. But once you're actually there, you're already in front of your computer, your engine is booted up, and you've already started writing code, it's so much easier to just continue doing that. You already did the thing you didn't want to do, which was just get up and go to your computer. That part's already done. Now you're kind of into it and you want to keep working on it. If you want to establish good habits, don't try to force yourself to work for hours every single day. Force yourself to work on your game for just 5 minutes a day, and you're likely to continue working for much longer than that because the hard part is already done. And you're more likely to do that in the first place because anybody can do anything for 5 minutes. If you're finding this video helpful, then please give it a like. It really helps us to grow our channel. Thanks, we really appreciate it. Your needs and preferences are going to be unique to you. But that being said, you're going to need some kind of plan. You might not need a full 2-year calendar where every single day is marked off with the specific tasks that you're going to work on that day, but you do need a direction to head towards. When I was younger, I wanted to be a fiction writer. And when I was in my early 20s, I actually did write an entire novel. It's actually monstrous and it's like 700 pages or some crap like that. I had good daily habits. I worked really hard on it for a long time. So what happened? My problem really started because I really hated planning. So I had this idea for a trilogy that I was going to write, and I had the high level idea all plotted out in my mind. So I just started writing. I told myself that good writers don't need to plan. They'll just go with the flow and figure out the details along the way. And I finished book 1 of 3. I ended book 1 with a cliffhanger with literally no idea how I was going to get my characters out of the situation that they were in. And it all kind of went downhill from there. I tried starting book 2, but I very quickly realized that because of my lack of planning when I was writing book 1, I had boxed myself into a tricky situation and I could not figure out a way to progress the storyline in a way that made me happy. I hit pause on writing the book and days turned into weeks, turned into months, and I kind of just stopped writing. So you should do enough planning so that you at least have a good idea of the beginning, middle, and end of your game. That way you're at least always going to know what you're working towards next. Making a game is a great technical feat, but it's also a wildly emotional experience. Games by nature are just really easy to criticize because you cannot create something that everybody likes. And because of that, you're going to find that you can sink dozens of hours into one single feature in your game only for someone to come along and criticize it and say that they didn't like it. That's tough to deal with. It's not an easy thing to create something and spend months or years of your life working on something and putting it out there only to hear really negative things about it. You have to be prepared for all of the emotions that you are going to experience when you're working on your game. Some people are really going to love it and you can ride that high for a while, but someone will come along and they will hate it. And if you're like me, when that moment comes along, you're going to feel completely defeated and like your work is completely worthless. You're also going to have to deal with imposter syndrome. It's not fun feeling like you have no idea what you're doing and you're just in this position where you kind of have to fake it until you make it. You will feel like that. Mine often gets triggered very easily by reading random comments online. Someone will mention some aspect of game development that I don't even know what they're talking about, and my brain will chime in and be like, you don't know what they're talking about? Then what business do you have even doing what you're doing? You might have a fear of success, and if you do, you'll have to be battling self-sabotage the entire way. You might have a fear of failure, and if you're like that, then each piece of criticism that you hear feels like validation that you can't make it. No matter who you are going to deal with overwhelming doubt and fears, and you need to be prepared for that. I love what Eric Barone, creator of Stardew Valley, had to say about this. It does help if you can absolutely convince yourself that you're destined for greatness. It's not even an ego thing. It's just a way to prevent doubt and insecurity from hindering you.